Good evening. I'd like to welcome all of you to my party. So nice you could all attend. So I'm going to call to order the work session meeting of Tuesday, March 28th, and would like approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. To avoid some misinformation that is out in our community, I'm going to switch the order of the public comment for this evening. I would like a presentation of the facts first, and then we will take public comment. Unless there's someone that has public comment about something other than this agenda item. Is there any? Okay, I also would like to remind everyone that let's be respectful and kind. If you forget that and I point to this, that means redirect you to that. Let's be kind and respectful of each other. We live in a beautiful, wonderful community, and let's show it by our respect and kindness. Thank you. Bruce, would you like to?
Oh, boy.
Hold on for technical difficulties.
If we shut the door, we have to have sound in there. So they're trying to get it to where.
Yeah.
Good evening. I want to give a little bit of background on the two projects that we'll be talking about tonight. Recently, the city received preliminary estimates for two long-awaited projects. Both estimates were higher than anticipated, so staff prepared to enter the process where projects can be cut to meet the funding and additional funding can be researched to allow the project to meet the minimum project scope. In doing so, we found an opportunity to go a long way towards getting the funding to allow us to achieve quality projects, but also a chance to finance improvements that have not been pursued in the past due to a lack of funding. At the outset, I want to talk about some incorrect speculation regarding where we are on the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation and City Hall. One is the size of the City Hall. Why does it have to be so big for a community of 1,500? The size of the City Hall police station is based on the current number of employees to be housed there, plus future workstations for a few more. There are common spaces like the council chambers, lobby, restrooms, hallways, mechanical rooms. Reducing the head count by one employee will reduce the size of the structure by about 120 square feet. Two architectural firms did separate programs, and by programs, it's looking at every position and every department, determining what size of a space someone needed, and then combined all of the employee spaces plus the lobby and all those other things that I was talking about to get the size. The two of them were less than 2.5% apart as far as what the needed space was for the City Hall. Next thing is the fact that size and time drive the costs. The City Hall Police Department is costing 16 to 18 million in late 2019. In early 2023, range was from 22 million to 25 million. Site questions. The law changed multiple times since we started this project. And in fact, this project was going on by 15 years before I got here. At one point, the state had decided that you couldn't build anything, any public buildings in the tsunami zone. Then at another point you could, and then with conditions. In November of 2022, it changed again in that no essential services, and police department falls under that, could be built in the tsunami zone. That includes a police station. That's where we got caught because we are not far enough along in the project. None of my peers were aware of it, and the state officials we contacted could not answer our questions. Instead of more delay and additional costs regarding the state decision, we decided there were two options to consider. City Hall on Hemlock and PD at the cache site. And the cache site is down in Tolovana end, and you can see it has some Connex boxes. That's where we store a lot of our materials. So it would be that location. The other choice is City Hall and the police department at the cache site. That's what we'll be talking about. There are two significantly different prices for the projects. To have City Hall on Hemlock and PD at the cache site is 25 million. To combine them both at the cache site is 22 million. That's where we are now. As far as Cannon Beach Elementary, there was no busted budget in the case of Cannon Beach Elementary. In fact, there was never a budget. We had engineers look into the cost of repairing and bringing the buildings up to code. The building and that cost, taking care of that, was about 3 million. I've done a lot of this type of work. I knew that was low. And so we increased it to about 4 million with the anticipation that once we got the design, we would know what the costs really were. That was where we were at the start of the project. The focus on seismic upgrades and stopping the immediate threat of water intrusion. That was pretty much the program. Building upgrades were calculated and measurements of existing walls, floor, ceilings with a finished level of paint and carpet. Building siding and underlayment was patched only when the materials were damaged. The utilities were 2 branch lines for electrical and plumbing. That was it. Now we have complete seismic upgrades to all the structures, complete weather-tight envelope from foundation to roof on both buildings, complete new facades on both buildings, including exterior windows and door packages. A new 2,000 square foot building addition, the heart of the site, which is tying the gym and the classrooms together. Catering kitchen, first-class gym for recreation, sports, events, and concerts. Community gardens, outdoor event venue, covered gather space for large events, complete new resilient utility infrastructure, and a unique to be treasured heritage center to show the world Cannon Beach's history. The cost discussion which is the focus of our meeting tonight, will come in 2 parts. Those are funding options to be considered and considerations in the reduction of scope. Tonight is just present those options to the council, and they will decide what they want to move forward with at a later date. We're not going to be making any commitments from funding, and we're not going to be tearing any parts of the building down. But those opportunities will be coming. What's proposed on the funding side is consideration of increasing the tourism lodging tax, or TLT, by either 1.5% or 2%. I will be talking about the funding side, and the scope reduction discussion will be led by construction manager of our Cannon Beach Elementary project, David Brookings. So the city, I think you'll see, is able to fund the majority of both projects. But projects of this scope that have not been saved for, that when you aren't going to be able to do them for free. And so we have to find a funding source. And we will talk a little bit about the recommendation to consider the TLT. Rusty, if you can set that up. This one?
You just.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay. I always get it wrong when Rusty gives me this. I start changing channels and all kinds of things. So, okay. We'll start with the elementary school, and we'll start with recommendation or consideration of a 1.5% increase in the tourism lodging tax. The total project cost is estimated to be just under $12 million. And then we've already borrowed 4.3 million. So we're saying take off the existing borrowing, I'm sorry. And so the additional capital required is 7.7 million. Next one, Rusty. Bill on Cannon Beach Elementary, the total debt service for 12 million is $750,000 a year. Minus the existing debt service, which we said we're already paying, that's $250,000. So the additional debt service required is $500,000. And I want to point out that here you see that this is highlighted green as this over here. Right now, the TLT brings in probably about $500,000 a year. And we're already making payments with a portion of that, and that's the $250,000. What remains is $231,000 that can be used to pay the note on the Cannon Beach Elementary. Next one, Rusty. So we got it down to $500,000. And now we have had conversations with the Tourism and Arts Committee. And they understand the importance of this project and the importance of this project to tourism. And they've agreed, and the council has yet to take it up, but they get 70% of one of the percents that we're already collecting on TLT. And they are saying they're good with us taking $100,000 off the money that they get to allocate because this project is so important to them. So when you take off the $100,000, we're down to $400,000 to make the payment. The annual debt service, as I said, we brought it down to $400,000 from there. And then the residual that I had on the previous screen is $231,250. And the annual debt service required is $168,750. Next one, Rusty. Now, if we were to add 1.5%, that 1.5% would be split into two pieces. One is 70%, which could be used on tourism-related purposes, and then 30%, which can be used for general purposes. So, I'm sorry, did I do that? All right, the $720,000, that's how much 70% of the new 1.5% would generate. So what happens if you apply that to the 168,000, you have $553,000 left. And here's the numbers that with the comparison. The 70% of the 1.5% is $721,875, and the 30% is $310,000. Next one, Marcy. This slide shows where the collections are for the TLT from a lot of the communities along the coast. Astoria, 11%. Gearhart's the only one that's lower than us. It's 7%. Newport, 12. Lakewood City, 9.5. Halem, Manzanita, 9. And Rockaway Beach, Seaside, Tillamook is 10%. Unincorporated Clatsop County is 10.5. Warrenton is 12. You can see that we are the second lowest on here. So next one, please. I want to talk about the tourism lodging tax again, using the 1.5% for the police station. The total project cost is $25 million. And for the purposes of this illustration, we're using the more expensive of the projects, not the least expensive of the projects or the options. So the annual debt service on 25 million is $1,555,000. Next one, Rusty. Now we're talking about trying to go ahead and buy that down. Again, starting at 1.555 million. The city portion of the prepared food tax is anticipated to be $900,000. That gets the annual debt service required down to $655,000. You go to the next one, $655,000. And then you take the 30% of the 1.5%, that's $310,000. Rusty, can you go back one? 2, 3? Here, this is the 310,000 we were talking about. We applied the 70% to the Cannon Beach Elementary. We're applying the $310,000, which is allowable on this for the city hall. Go back where we were. All right, thank you. So now we're closer at $345,000. Actually, when we're at $345,000, which is from the previous slide, we take put money in our general fund every year from the RV park, from the income from the park. Talking about taking a portion of that money that we would normally put into the general fund and apply it to the city hall cost. That gets the annual debt service required down to $195,000. I see. Thanks. Go back one. Okay. This gets us to $195,000. This is the reason we're looking at 2% also, because in this case, it was $310,000 allowable for City Hall in the when we did the 1.5%, but you can see that the 2% is going to bring us much closer is from the funding standpoint. All right, next question. Next 3 or 4 slides you've already seen, but I'll go through them again. Cannon Beach Elementary, total debt service for $12 million is $750,000. We're already paying $250,000, so that gets us down to $500,000 or $500,000. And again, this $231.50 remains. Go ahead, Rusty. So the additional debt service from the previous page is $500,000. We talked about reallocating the TAC funding prior to the TAC being put in the TAC account. That's $100,000. That gets the annual debt service down to $400,000. We're down at $400,000. Then again, we're applying the $231,750. And that gets us to $168,750. This is where the difference is. The 70%, 2% of the TLT increase is $962,500. You apply that to the $168,750, we have a surplus of $793,750. What can that be used for? That can, there's a project I keep hearing about, which is the Parks Master Plan. We've done nothing on the part. Well, I think we've done one small project in the Parks Master Plan because we don't have funding. This puts us in a position to be able to do something with that, add to the ambiance of the city, and to finally move forward with something that had gone through a very public process planning. So that would mean that there would be $793,750 available for that. I think next when we go to the city and the police station, this is where you'll see a difference. City Hall, 25 million is 1.555 million for annual debt service. The city portion of the prepared food tax, 900,000, gets us to the 655 again for how much money we still need to raise. Starting at the 655, 30% of the additional 2%, the TLT increase is $412,000. That gets us down to, yeah, I'm sorry, because this is the City Hall. We can use the 30%, but not the 70%. So that gets us down to $242,500 for City Hall. Excellent. And the additional debt service required is $242,500. We talked about the RV park income for $150,000. Gets the additional debt service required down to $92,000. I'm confident that when we get into the design, the cost that we have now, which is the 25 million or the 22 million, that is all on the high side. We asked them to make sure that they estimated and so that we weren't short at the end. So I feel confident that that kind of funding would be available when it comes time, or we can see it actually go down if we continue the design process. The next.
Happens.
There no one?
Well, now you got into
Yeah, into this. Okay. I'll go ahead and read this because it's all the revenue enhancements shown in the funding portion of this presentation can also be accomplished by cost reductions, which is the next part of the presentation. Something that is counterintuitive, though, is that there's not a direct correlation to a debt service amount and a cost reduction. The next page, I have an example. To offset $100,000, which is roughly what it was when it 96,000 or whatever on the previous slide. Rounded to $100,000. To offset the $100,000 annual debt service shortfall requires a capital reduction of approximately $1.5 million. And so we can't say, well, if we can take $96,000 off the project, we'll be good. That $96,000 has to be paid every year for 30 years. So that's why essentially to take takes $15 off of the project to take $1 off of the debt service. Okay. And this just shows some numbers that, you know, we started looking at. That is, if you increase the PLP by 1.5%, the total is 1,031,000. 70% is 721,875, and the 30% is 309,000. We rounded that to 310 in the presentation. The 2%, which you've just seen, is 1.375 million for the total. The 70%, which is the lion's share, is 962,000. 30% is 412,000. This one we did not explore, but 2.5%, the total is $1,718,750. 70% of that is $1,203,125. And the 30% is $515,625. This is up here because if we were to go to the 2.5, we would clearly pay for the entire both projects. Any questions?
Bruce, could you explain why you broke it into 70% and 30% that
Yes.
the state law requires?
Right.
That the state law requires.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought I did cover that. The 70, if we collect 1%, you can see the numbers are quite large. But by state law, that whatever number we collect has to be split into a 70% portion, which can be used for tourism related costs. And then 30%, which the city can use in its general fund to be able to move forward with projects. So that's why it's split that way. And that's not an optional split that we can do anything with. That's just what we're left with. Thank you for the question.
Other counselors have questions?
Let me just throw in one other thing here. Purposely, this was set up so that there was no need to go and have the property owners pay any part of this project. We are able to go ahead and cover it. We're covering a lot of it with other costs the city or other funds the city has, but there will not be any tax assessment on property owners as a result of this this process. Now, if the process changes, I can't say too much about that, but with this process, there is no tax increase.
I think it's also important to point out that the beverage tax remains the same.
Yes, so there's no change to the food and beverage tax.
And none planned,
Exactly.
Exactly.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
So that
Correct.
needs to be put to rest. That's not happening.
This will cover it all for food and beverage side and also for the personal property tax.
So now, is there another presentation by David?
Yes.
Okay.
We're done with that. Okay, and David Brookings is here to talk about, because there's another process that we can go through on this, and that is reducing the size of the building, reducing the scope, the equipment, whatever. And So David, if you would talk to us, David is with our CMGC or construction manager, general contractor. They're the ones that will be building the facility. The interesting part about the CMGC process is they actually work for the city and work with the architect early on until it's time to go out to bid. And then all the subcontracting work is bid out, but they stay with us the whole time. And then they take responsibility for building the structure at that point and actually give us a guaranteed maximum price. So, David, if you would kind of talk about the process that you have gone through in the past.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm Dave Brookings with Brentman Construction. I'm representing the CBE project. Emmerich is also here representing the City Hall project, but process where we go through.
A little louder.
Okay, sorry. The process we will go through is called value engineering. And we'll work with the design team and the city to come up with a list of needs and wants. We'll put priorities on all that on the list. And as we go through that list, we'll price each item. And through that process, the design team, the collective group will be able to determine items that can be added back later if we can find some savings. But through this process, it requires a lot of hard decisions to be made. So there could be part of the project that is loved by some people, but just has to be cut out. So it's involved. We're still very early on in the project. The design is schematic in nature. So our estimate is schematic in nature. The next phase would help us dive into the details, help CETA and team really determine the structure and the material selections, which then allows us to put firm pricing based on historical data to each one of the line items.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions from the council for David? Okay, when we start public comment, you will have 3 minutes to speak. If you are representing a group, you let us know what group you're representing, and try not to have everyone come up and say the same thing. Let's be original. And
Name and address.
name and address when you start. Thank you, Lisa. And remember respect and kindness. So who would like to start us up? Lolly?
Yes. Hi, I'm Lolly Champion, PO Box 614. And, I represent myself and a lot of neighbors and other people who email me. Thanks, Jennifer. I'd like to, first of all, say something extra. I did appreciate city manager's presentation, but again, for me, and I'm sure many other in the audience, it brought up more questions, did not come near to answering many of the questions we still have hanging out there. So my remarks are, I respectfully request the city council call a complete moratorium on the 3 building projects, the elementary school, city hall, and the police station, and make any changes to the food taxes and TLC and begin any of the TSP proposals. In other words, a moratorium on all those things. It is time for the council and the city staff to bring a complete and transparent and accountable plan to the citizens consisting of the following elements. Costs for each project with no change orders without community agreement. The exact location for the city hall and police station with confirmation bids for the area preparation required, including traffic requirements. The design and construction bids are an exact commitment for costs and are available for review and questions by the community. That the square footage, proposed uses of each of the building and spaces, including the elementary school, are explained and defensible for the size proposed and size of staff that use the space in a reasonable size, as in other city halls and tourist towns, much greater populations. I've checked with a lot of the other towns, their sizes of their city halls and their staff were comparable. The food tax remains unchanged until the above issues are resolved, and then change only with the public hearings. The TLT follow the same as above. The TSP is put on hold until the city buildings are completed so new traffic patterns may be studied. I also request the city council be responsible to the residents, businesses, and all your constituents for imparting the information I am asking you to consider. A reminder, the city assets, including all monies belonging to the city and how those assets are used, be accountable and transparent to the citizens. It is our town, our assets. We entrust to you to be responsible in representing us for us as the citizens. Thank you. I've given a copy to Jennifer.
Thank you. Next. Go ahead.
I'm Tim Ramey, PO Box 429, Cannon Beach. So I'm going to echo our mayor's statements. We do live in a beautiful, wonderful community. Cannon Beach has always, in my opinion, this is just me, held itself to a high standard. Throughout the years, we have done things that other communities didn't do that maybe cost more money, maybe limited the number of neon signs, maybe limited the number of franchise restaurants, but we held ourselves to a higher standard. And the fruits of those past decisions are what we enjoy. I wrote about our very first council, 1958, allocating 15 times the amount of money they had in reserves to build a sewer system because they felt that was important. It was important. Ask the people of Gerhardt who have to, their businesses are failing because they have to spend $5,000 a month to pump out their tanks. So we have a proud history of doing things right. And I count on our council to continue doing that. We also have kind of a problem. Here's the problem. We have $5 million coming at us right now in TLT money every year, and 70% of that has got to be spent on tourism-related activities. Do some different things. We could buy an ad in the New York Times Magazine every week, 52 weeks a year. Okay, that would about use that up. We would jam this town with tourists. We could buy an ad in the Wall Street Journal, probably 20 times a year, and do the same thing. We would jam this town with tourists. The feedback is we really don't want to jam this town with tourists. So we need somebody clever to come up with an idea to use that fire hose of money on TLT related things, like maybe an arts center, a community center. And this is a brilliant project. It is so smart because that fire hose of money is coming and we have to spend it. We can call the New York Times, we can call the Wall Street Journal, or we can build the building. It just is obvious to me that we're going to do things to a higher standard. We're going to do it right. And we're going to build something that we can all be extremely proud of. With regard to the city hall and the police station, let's do the least bad alternative. But the bad alternatives have gotten worse over time. Delay has been our enemy. We have gone from having lots of options and lower cost to few options and very high costs. So you delay this project at your own peril. It's only going to get more expensive. And I think we have to just bite the bullet and do what has to be done. This room is overcrowded right now. We need a city hall. People are involved in this process. Two other points Bruce didn't mention. One, I'm a finance guy. I spent 35 years on Wall Street as an analyst. You got to think about the income statement. Everything Bruce talked about was income statement. You also got to think about balance sheet. You also got to think about other sources of cash. I'm convinced that as soon as we have this plan together, we can hire some grant writers and probably come up with $2-3 million worth of grants at a minimum. And that's not in his numbers, but we can do it because these are worthy projects. The other side,
Gotta wrap it up.
the other side is the balance sheet. I have to say, I made an error in something I published on Sunday saying we had $16.5 million of net reserves. That's after you account for the debt. 16.5 million of cash accounting for the debt. We don't. We had an inaccurate posting on our second quarter financial condition by $4 million. That was a problem. That was the numbers that were presented. I'm speaking now as a budget committee member. Those numbers were presented to us and to you as the council. And that's a problem because they were off by $4 million. But we still have $12.5 million, which is nothing, not nothing. So we don't need that much money. We increased our cash balance, excluding the proceeds of the bonds, by $3.5 million just in the past 6 months.
Thank you.
And Mayor, can I address 2 things?
Sure.
First of all, Tim, thanks for your comment, especially about the grants and things. We're actually, I didn't want to include that because I didn't know what the number would be. We're working with the Columbia River Estuary ST, whatever their final thing is, but Crest. And they're grant experts. And we're working with the president of Crest, who lives in the city. She is working to try to track down any grants that we can get, be they federal grants, especially if it's related to mitigation costs, those sorts of things. And even down to see if there are things that people that want to pay for personally, because they like the idea of it going in and having their name someplace on the building. So that's a part of it. The other issue is with that, and thank you for bringing that up. From what I understand, that was an error in that the information from before the we got the last bond issue and the last bond rating, that's what was used as opposed to what happened after. So that's the way it was explained, and I'll be talking to Lori about it more.
Actually, the correct information was in the first quarter report.
Yeah.
And then the incorrect information was in the second quarter report. So it's not bad.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next.
Good evening, Patrick Nofield, 271 West Kenai, Cannon Beach. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a citizen of this community for 37 years. Can you believe that? I was young when I got here. So about 2 years ago, I submitted a letter to City Council. Brandon, Nancy may have seen it. And it was asking about the school being utilized as an event center, raising a few concerns. And one of them, of course, is, where's the money coming from? Which at the time I thought, split this one slide because, it's a small project. It's 3 million or 4 million enhancements and whatnot. Didn't have a problem with it. But one of the things that I question is, once this thing is built, what are the ongoing costs? What is your budget to sustain it, to continue to capitalize it? And people aren't talking about that, at least that I'm aware of. Thirdly, if this is an event center, what about the parking? Where are you going to park? I mean, you guys know how horrible it is in the summer on the weekends. Now you're going to have an event center and you're going to drop people. What's going to happen to them? Bruce reached out to us as lodging people a few years ago and said, hey, we have this idea to use tourism funds to build an event center. Do you think your guest could use that facility? And the answer I said is no. We have the Surf Sand, we have Total Vanna Inn, we have Hallmark, and those people aren't even full using their event space. But the problem is people that come to a hotel for groups, they don't necessarily want to travel to a different location. Their catering needs, everything's right there for them. So that is an issue. And then referring to the 70-30%. So just for a refresher, back in 2003, the state legislature passed House Bill 2267, also known as a tourism investment proposal, which allocated 70% of any new transit lodging taxes after 2003 be spent for tourist-related purposes. And the thing is, they defined it as it relates to an event center, defines tourist as a person traveling more than 50 miles from their community or residence, or includes an overnight stay. Now, I questioned this a while back, and I got a little bit of pushback, but will the people that use this facility come to use it from 50 miles away? Will the people that use this facility be an overnight guest? Really, I mean, is it a tourist-related facility or is it a community event facility? And are we guising it under the pretense of generating those TLT revenues to pay for it? And I think the bottom line for that is what is defined metrics? What is defined metrics in place that indeed creates a benefit for tourism? Bruce, I have to disagree with you right now. So you said the city lodging tax in Cannon Beach is 8%. When my guests come and stay at our properties, they pay 10.5%. Now, granted, 8% goes to the city, but that guest is paying 1% to the county and 1.5% to the state. On a $450 rate, which yes, that's what we're getting now, they're paying over a 3-night stay, almost $150. That's a burden. At some point, the guest is going to make a decision. They don't look at it as a $450 rate. They look at it as a $550 rate. And we've got to be cognizant of that. One of the things you'll notice, and Lori gets me this from time to time, is if you look at transient lodging tax without changing the rate on a quarterly basis, going back 3 or 4 years, they increase every freaking year by a significant amount because we leave that alone. That's been good for us. Now, I want to talk about a few things that I would like to consider. One is, as it relates to the Cannon Beach Elementary School project, I would say take a time out. Why do we have to push this through right now? Why don't we focus our energies on relocating the police department, redoing the city hall, leverage the existing resources we have? The issue is, you guys, you have a fiduciary responsibility to this community to spend those dollars wisely. And there's a tendency at times to bite off more than you can chew. I mean, we've already seen it. We have again, my apologies if I'm not correct, but if it was $4 million, that was the expectation. Now it's a $12 million project. That's a 300% increase. And that's significant. My hope would be that before we do anything further, we finalize our scope. Schematic design phase is great, but it doesn't pay the bills. You have to get to construction documents before you can figure out what this is going to cost. And then you value engineer. Yeah, we don't value engineer in schematic design typically because we just did a project and I have a line by line item. I've got my building costs. What does it cost to build the property? I've got my on-site work. I've got my furniture, fixtures, and equipment. I've got architectural fees. Then I've got architectural construction administration. I've got reimbursables.
Patrick.
Yeah, you let him use my 3 minutes, please.
Yes.
I think you should continue.
Okay.
Thank you, Barb. We've got engineering fees, we've got plumbing, we've got mechanical, we've got electrical, we've got structure, we've got geotechnical, we've got civil, we got landscape, and we have acoustical engineers. Then we have our building permits, and those fees that go into that. Have you guys considered the system development cost on building these facilities? It's a huge number. Then you've got legal fees, you've got your insurance, testing, and then your financing cost. And then on top of that, every prudent project has a contingency for building costs, for furniture, fixture, and equipment, for soft costs, for site work, because invariably every project you do is going to cost more. And my hope is that you do that because you don't want to come back for and ask for a third time or a fourth time. It's going to kill you. One of the things that we talk about the transparency between communicating, working, we've always had issues with agreeing in this community. It happens, but we've always handled it with respect and with kindness and civility. But it seems like over the past 2 years, it's become so divisive. And I wonder what's underneath that. What's the root cause? And I think we all need to look at that and examine what that is. It's not great coming down and having somebody sneer at you because you don't agree with them anymore. One of the things that I know this is completely, maybe a little wild, but What if we created a local advisory committee made up of architect locally, general contractor, developer, public works director, city planner, and Brandon, I'd love to see you as a council liaison. To not be punitive, but to come alongside and add some of what we know in Cannon Beach to be to help this project be successful. We're here, we do this all the time. I'd just like your consideration with that, please. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank Deanna.
Madam Mayor, if I can, with all
Hold your comments, or I think we're gonna, let everybody speak. Okay, who would like to go next?
Anybody in the rooms?
Oh, yeah, we can check.
There are people in the room. If you'd like.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being a good audience. I appreciate it. I could tell a few jokes while we're waiting.
No.
Having too much fun back there.
nobody wants to speak, but I did tell them they're behaving very well.
Okay,
A couple of line having fun. Move on.
okay, we have a speaker.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, for the record, my name is Greg Astley. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. We're located in Wilsonville, Oregon. Thank you for the opportunity to come out here. I always appreciate Cannon Beach, even when we get weather like this during spring breaks. So, it's nice to be here on the coast. I know we're not talking about the meals tax, but I'm gonna bring it up only because I understand that the first quarter collections were down about 3%, and that the second quarter collections may be down as well. And that may not be due to budgeting projections, but it may be due to the fact that the restaurants are still suffering in our state. We're still seeing restaurants close on a regular basis. We lag behind most other states when it comes to our tourism recovery at this point. So I bring that up because the projections for the numbers that you have may not be accurate. We would love to see numbers continue to climb so that more TLT revenue comes into the city, but that may not be realistic. You have 3 of the top 15 hotel locations in the country, according to a recent magazine article. People love Cannon Beach, but they may not love it as much if they don't feel welcome here. And when you increase your costs to visitors, whether that be when they go out to have a bite to eat or whether they come to the hotel, that can be disheartening. We're concerned about the cost ceiling. As you've already heard, there needs to be a hard number. If you own a home or you own a business and you undertake a project, you don't just keep going with the project when you don't have the money. You have to rethink that project. You have to figure out, especially if the costs have doubled, if it's going to be worth doing in the future. And I appreciate the comments made about taking out advertisements and using the money for bringing people here. But I'll tell you right now, Coke and Pepsi are pretty well known around the world. And yet they spend billions of dollars every single year on advertising. And there must be a reason for that. You have to remind people of what a special place this is in order for them to come back to it. There's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of other special places. And if you want them to continue to come back and you want them to support the local businesses, they have to be reminded of that. So you have to let them know. I would urge you to consider cutting back on these projects. Be realistic. Again, you've heard from some other folks, community members here who have already asked you for transparency. They've asked you for accountability and they've asked you for those hard numbers. I would echo those sentiments and just ask that you take a hard look at what you have in front of you. No matter what decision you make, I know it's a tough one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone on?
You have a couple on.
Okay. Wait a minute, we got somebody.
Somebody coming up.
We got a live one. Go.
Hi, I'm Amber Fowler, PO Box 657, Cannon Beach. I don't want to be redundant to anyone that's spoken before me, but I do want to say that I feel that we are seemingly rushing on something that doesn't need to be rushed if we could take a more comprehensive view of what our town needs. I think that we're not thinking about the bigger picture here over time. I think that we're rushing to think about a new city hall or rushing to think about a new police station as a la carte menu options instead of thinking about a more holistic view of the type of needs that this community needs for its citizens and for its tourists. I think we need more parking. I think we need to address how we want to account for Cannon Beach being a car run town or a tourist run town, or a nice balance of a community and a tourist destination. And I feel that we're looking at things in silos instead of looking at them as a whole. And I think that when we think about the community center or a tourist center event place, we're not thinking about daycare or school or public housing or middle housing or any of these things as an efficient view of the ecosystem that we need here in Cannon Beach. And so I guess my point in wanting to speak is to raise the option that we open up, take the blinders off a little bit, open up our focal range, and actually take a broader look before we rush to make big decisions that are $1 million decisions. I'm in finance, have been for 23 years, and I just see this as incomplete and moving fast without all the facts. And I know that other people have said the same, and I appreciate that, but I really do think that we don't have the information that we need in order to act on these kinds of decisions. And so I just really urge the council and the staff to just really re-examine the bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber, you have fans in the next room.
Is there anyone else? Jim?
Hello, I'm Jim Pano. I'm the executive director for the Cannon Beach Chamber of Commerce. And I wrote a letter to you all that I'm just going to kind of go through real quick and talk about. You know, this meeting was very important, as you can see by everybody here, and requiring input. You've asked me for the business input, and I hope that you've received that business input now. So I want to kind of go over a few topics real quick to talk about why the Chamber of Commerce does what it does and why we do the DMO work. So the mission of the Chamber is to promote, enhance, and maintain a healthy environment for business as a year-round destination, because we are. That includes the desire that such an environment will be protective of the aesthetic and livability of our community. So we are concerned about our livability of Cannon Beach as well. It's not just one side or the other. I believe we take a holistic look at everything we do and how it's going to affect the businesses, citizens, City Hall, and the visitors. We want to make sure that that comes into balance. I recently sent out an email that has really gone around town and been discussed at length by various sides. And even I've received some critiques back directed at me that I hope to address a little bit here. So the question is, why did I send out this email? Any raise in the TLT tax, transition of funding, affects the business community. You know, you can say that it's a tax on visitors, but it's the business community that facilitates those taxes. Without the business community, you wouldn't be able to get those taxes. So it does have an effect. And the business community is going to have to deal with that. And so when you talk about additional funding, in the 3 meetings I watched the previous week before I sent out the email and had a meeting with the business community, in those meetings, all options were on the table. Then later on, it was said that the property tax is off the table. For those, that tells me that any options for funding are going to be on the business community. Well, I wanted to make sure that the business community was aware that this discussion was going to happen today. So that's why I called a meeting. And at that meeting, there were many options discussed of what could or couldn't happen with this funding, what should or shouldn't happen with the project. And in my email, I tried to highlight points that were pertaining to funding, because that's what this discussion was going to be about today. And sure, the citizens and the businesses would love to provide input on the projects. And I'm hoping that they've provided letters to you and have given you a lot of information that will help you make a decision that's right for all of us. I thought too that it might be important to discuss what the transient lodging room tax goes to, what the cities and the chambers work as the destination management organization is all about. Tim mentioned we have $6 million worth of marketing money. That's absolutely not the case. The majority of that funding is the general fund, as you all know from the budget meetings. We get 70% of 1% that funds the destination management organization work. That work is funded through a tax that was instituted in 2015 when the hoteliers and the chamber came to the city and asked for an additional 1% to create a marketing program for the community, because we didn't have one. You know, without a marketing program or even messaging out from Cannon Beach about what Cannon Beach is and why people should visit or how they should visit, that's left to the wide world to tell everybody what Cannon Beach is. I feel that that is an important message for us to be putting out about our own community. Hoteliers came and asked for that tax. The city agreed to that with the 70-30 split. So the 70% was to fund the DMO, which the chamber has accepted up that work because we were the most logical organization to do that work, because we'd already run the visitor center for so many years, and they took on the marketing effort because we had some marketing people at the time that were really good at doing that. COVID came along and changed that, and we're rebuilding that program now. But that funding only reached $500,000 this past year. Before that, it was much less. It's been growing every year, but that has been growing at the same time that the city's general fund has been growing with the transient lodging room tax that go to the city. The 30% from that 1% tax has also been growing and going to the city for use as you guys deemed it goes, because that's the 30% that you receive. So I just want to make it clear that there's not millions of dollars being spent on marketing. Our entire budget is this past year just over $500,000. And the majority of that in 2018, we negotiated that we would fold the visitor center expenses into the marketing and DMO work. Before that, the city was paying out of the general fund $160,000 a year for those services that the chamber was providing for visitor services. So that saved the city from their general fund $160,000 a year. And for that, we took on the added expenses and made it part of our DMO work. COVID came along, we cut everything down, and then the funding came in higher than expected. But we've been running short-staffed and trying to rebuild that program back up to what it was before. We have not yet, maybe last year was the first year we've reached that level of funding that we had prior to 2019. So those fundings really are put to use. And of that funding, it's really not a huge portion that goes towards marketing. And I'll be giving that presentation to you all in May. The other thing I'd like to talk about is, has anybody had a wedding here in Cannon Beach? Anyone? Have you had sons, daughters, grandkids, other family members married in Cannon Beach? Well, everybody that comes to those weddings Our friends, they're important. Cannon Beach has been known as a wedding destination for a long time. Am I right, Nancy? All of those people are visitors, your friends, your family, people you know and love that come here are visitors. So that tax is on them as well. And so it's not just a faceless random person that's coming here and spending money. It's our friends and family. And many of the businesses that I know consider their customers, friends and family as well. So when they come and present to the council about their concerns about additional taxes, whether it's lodging or restaurant, or really anything pertaining to business, they're representing their customers, visitors, and friend and family. So I encourage you to listen to what they have to say and take it into account, because it's very important for our visitor economy, which the city relies on for its funding. We rely on for the destination management organization, and our businesses rely on it. Without a viable business economy, this town would be in very dire straits. So please take that into account. Yeah, I think that kind of sums up what I wanted to say. My letter, of course, is more in depth, and I encourage you to take that into account. I've always said when I present to you guys, my door is always open to you, to anyone in the community that wants to talk about what the chamber does, what the DMO is working on. And I'm happy at any time to have those conversations with anyone that has questions. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Dan?
I'm Jan Siebert Ormond, PO Box 778, Cannon Beach. I really am, the best thing about tonight is to have people in the room. This is the best.
All with smiles on their face.
We've had the best turnout tonight in years.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that people care enough to come and show up and speak. I do hear the concerns from a lot of the business people. I also wanted to speak myself as a citizen, long time, 35 years now with my family. And I wanted to just speak about the projects very simply. I had not written a letter, but just listening tonight, I do feel we have to all really seriously take the comments from tonight, work with those going forward. I also think it's really important to keep the Cannon Beach Elementary School project and at least the police station project going forward. And I would just, this is just me, I would just like to suggest that we look at, for the Cannon Beach Elementary, we look at the TLT funding that we have already, that we have coming in before we would make any changes. And then we would also hopefully look at some grant money, which I'm thrilled to know that Crest is helping with, because I really trust Crest. I trust Denise. She's my neighbor. She's very bright and we're lucky to have her. And then I also am hoping that we can find private donations from people for the more fancy parts of that building. I think if we can renovate the building and find cost solutions that keep the cost down a bit, I think people will feel more supportive of it. And then people can help, with private donations and such. And then as far as the police station, I would prefer the police station at the cash site. And I think if we did split the two, the city hall, I've always hoped we could keep the city hall here on this site. As a walker, I usually walk to the meetings, and I think other people might really like it to be still in this site, on this site. I think a lot of people think it's the heart of our community, and it does not need to be as high up as the police station. So if we could do the police stations separately first, and it wouldn't cost much that way, and then we could see where we are with the financial situation, and then do the city hall. So, and we could even meet at the Cannon Beach Elementary in the meantime, building the hall. I mean, we could use possibly, it's one idea. So anyway, a lot to think about, but I do believe we can do this if we're really creative and we're careful and respectful of the residents and the people that visit, you know? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the room? Nancy?
Nancy Littell, 3631 South Hemlock Beach. I've been here 45 years. Score. And I wasn't going to talk tonight. I've been out of this loops for a long time now, but I think we would be damn fools if we don't save that Cannon Beach Elementary building, whatever it takes. I'm not sure that it's a tourist destination thing because of a lot of reasons. First, and I'm also very concerned about the parking there. There's no parking there. And if I've seen the plans that have been laid out for the beautiful greenscaping and the areas and the parklands there, and I just keep wondering, where are people going to park if they come? I don't have anything to say about the police department, but I sure know we need a city hall. And yes, that's about all I have to say. I think that we have to move ahead and save that building.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next.
I have to sprint up here and I know Bruce is going, no. I'm St. Dennis and my PO box is 1474. And actually that was a perfect lead into what I wanted to say.
You're welcome.
Which is about number one, first of all, everybody's has been so incredibly respectful and kind. So thank you, Barb. I think that goes a long way in creating resolutions.
Thank all of you.
Yeah, and but I also want to thank all of you guys, every one of you, the counselors, and the entire city staff, because these people have put in thousands of hours to bring stuff to us. And we can go, oh, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. They really have thoughtfully planned, researched, done their homework to present options. And that's really my understanding what this was about, to bring options, not to make a decision, not to say this is bad, this is good. And that seems to have been accomplished. But I just really want to, because you guys are always overlooked. You pour your heart and soul, and you counselors, you guys, you don't get paid. You know, you're representing the community, and I thank you. And I really hope that I won't be the only one to thank you. And the lead-in City Hall, I would assume everybody here has been to one of the City Hall meetings that they talk about what it is and done the walkthrough. And if you have, I don't think there's a single person in here that would choose to work here in the condition. It's horrible. It's horrible. And here we are, probably one of the highest priced real estate coastal towns, and we give these people this to work in. I mean, it's absurd. And it doesn't have to be elaborate, but and again, my understanding is anything that is going to be built has to be built to code, because as we all know, earthquakes are happening every day, tsunamis, everything. The world is crazy. And this town will not be happy if we have to go, I guess we should have prepared. Let's not be like that. But again, my concern is for the people that work here. I feel incredibly disrespectful to ask them to continue to work in a really unfit place. And well, if the police had to bring in somebody really, really bad, well, I don't know where they're going to go, because that is not equipped in the least bit to handle even somebody that stole candy from someplace. So anyway, I mean, it's not, you know.
Hey, Lori, wrap it up.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate you.
Thank
Great
you.
meeting. Thanks, Barb.
Anyone else in the audience? Who are you? Hi, Sam.
Sam Stidham, 123 West First. Always wanted to say that. I have 2 points, specifically about Cannon Beach Elementary renovation. Dustin and his team have created a gorgeous design, but it's a dream. It's too much. It's time to really discuss what Bruce called reduction of scope. Need to dial it back. We need to think about it. I don't think it would be wise to wait for what you call it, value engineering. It is a discussion that can happen right now with what we have. We can literally look at parts of the project and say, this looks like something a grant would cover, or this looks like something we can wait on. That would actually help narrow the value engineering into a more focused design. The second point that I want to make is we desperately need to look at operations. I have asked for that for years, that we discuss the operations partial of this so that it can be incorporated in the design process. Not been done. I also want to note on the fact that, yes, there is a hurry up on this. It's been 10, almost 11 years now that we have talked about renovating the old school building. Every time we talk about it, oh, there's something else we can, that moves it just a few more months. Come on. It's been promised, it's been, well, one thing is the implied budget. It has an implied budget. And that was the limit of the 1% or the 70% of the 1% from the county. So that's just my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay. Oh,
This is a quick and easy one. Andrew Tonnery, PO Box 664. I just want, this is obvious, but I just want to ask the councilors to please kind of lay your cards on the table tonight. We all are here because we're not sure where you are. So I would love to hear a robust kind of holistic discussion about, you've taken in a lot of information in the last few weeks in meetings and you kind of kept your cards close to the vest. And I think we would all love to know how you're feeling about this stuff. So that's all.
thank you. Okay, let's go to Zoomers.
It's like Anita has her hand up.
Okay, Anita. Anita?
I do not have my hand up.
That was
We can see it.
I'm not on video.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank you. You kept it under 3 minutes.
Waving at us.
Anyone on Zoom, if you want to speak, please raise your hand. Been a long time since I've said that. Nobody?
Did I see Debatia happen? Yeah, and then it went away. Oh, okay.
Oh, was afraid to raise their hand.
Now it's up.
No, it's up again. It's up.
Okay. Deb? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So Barb, this is your debut as mayor of this all drama, the good, bad, and the ugly. And how's the car ride, Mrs. Kennedy?
Just fine. This is taking your 3 minutes, so hurry up.
So I'm really happy to hear people with, the thing is we started this so long ago, and now I wish people would have come forward a long time ago with some of this, because I think there's a lot of great solutions tonight. Personally, I'm very concerned about the fractured community and the kind of the emails that are very debilitating, vicious, mean-spirited and cruel and angry toward each other. I don't like that. And it's like being stuck in a house of parents yelling at each other and you can't escape. And I can't imagine coming to work if I worked at the city and not feeling empowered by the residents and the business owners. I think it's really sad. It's such a beautiful place, and I don't think it's serving us well. I've been reading a lot of comments, and of course I report on a lot of stuff. I am actually speaking tonight as a citizen, a voter, and a taxpayer, by the way, not as a reporter. But we've moved here, later in life, and even though we've come here, sometimes we feel like we're less than. But even though we've lived here all our lives, and our uncle was governor of Oregon, and we just feel less than. And it doesn't matter what the experience you've had, and there's no trust with people. And I just think we should to aspire to something greater. And we could all die in a car wreck like last night, and can you honestly speak from your soul that you've been kind to each other? So I would say, I want to say that I have all the trust in the world with each of the counselors that we elected you all, and you were elected by us, so that I have trust in your decisions. I have trust in the contractors you've hired. I have trust in the architects that have been hired. And, I ran a business for 30 years, and I always took risk, and I always shot for the moon and the stars. I see the school as something that's going to be big with the Indian history of Lewis and Clark, possible grants there, education for the environment, HRAP, lots of people and little kids coming in there to learn about Cannon Beach and the birds and the wildlife. I see that as really positive. I don't think we should stop with the police station, because we've kicked that down the road now, I think 30 years from what I've heard. And for emergency reasons, we need that. Because I'm on I was a nurse for several years as well. And if you knew the insides of the emergency management and the technology they need to be competent in today's world, it's really necessary.
Okay, Deb, wrap it up.
I say make it happen and go all the way. So, and I think we should all get along and row the boat together.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Last chance? Okay, thank you. Okay, now it's our turn. Did you want to make some comments?
No,
I wanted to earlier. Change your mind now?
time's passed.
I'll start with a couple of comments.
Thank you.
This is very confusing. We have two projects, two big projects. And the funding sources for them are completely different. So I appreciate Patrick coming to speak, and he made some very good points. I think he made the point that he'd like to see us put Cannon Beach Elementary on the back burner and concentrate on City Hall. And I just wanted to point out that I don't think he was saying this, but I didn't want there to be any confusion with anybody, that it's not like we can move that money from the school over to the City Hall project. So the funding sources are completely different, and I hope everybody understands that. I appreciate all of the written public comments. I know we all read them and take them seriously. There were some interesting ones. I'm always, when people make the point that we're a town of 1,400 people, why do we need a multi-million-dollar city hall. I'd say similar cities in Oregon are to our size are Culver and Hines. They're not Cannon Beach. We have some pretty specific needs here. We don't have 1,400 residents. We have almost 1,500 residents. We have 3,151 tax lots. But more importantly, we're one of the Northwest's most popular tourist destinations. We have hundreds of thousands of visitors a year. And on any given day, we have to have a city and infrastructure and services that serve tens of thousands of people. So to try to make the correlation that we should be trying to achieve a city hall suitable for a town of 1,400 is just not really being realistic. May I make a couple of other points?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to talk about where city funding comes from, because this is a little bit of the other side of the coin. But I hear a lot, make the tourists pay for it, which is not something that it kind of makes me cringe when I hear that. Property taxes in Cannon Beach represent 11% of our general fund, if you round up. If you take lodging taxes, which includes the restricted lodging taxes that have to go to tourism purposes, the non-restricted, if you take the food tax, if you take business license fees and short-term rental permits, tourism essentially accounts for over 80% of our city's total revenues. So I just think we need to keep those things in mind as we move forward. And I just want to say, this is the process. You're here and we're having the conversation, and this is the way it works. So I would also appreciate less divisiveness and less nasty emails and assuming evil motives about people. We're trying to do the best we can up here and come up with a solution that works with a really challenging, where's the money going to come from for a city hall for a town like Cannon Beach? Where's it going to come from? I'm asking the council that.
Well, I'd like to say that I feel like there's been talk about transparency and there's been talk about all of a sudden this is being sprung on people. There have been so many meetings about these issues over months, actually over a year, on and on and on. And I just wonder, and if you can't come to a meeting, everything is online. You can view it. You can sit in your pajamas with a glass of wine at home and watch the city council meeting. So when people make comments like, we're going to raise the food tax, where in the world is that coming from? Where is it coming from? There has never been anyone on this council who has suggested raising the food tax. And yet there were bunches of letters that implied or directly said that was our motive. So something like that is really disturbing to me, because as a citizen, I believe that it's the citizens' their responsibility to inform themselves. It's not anyone else's responsibility to inform you. If the information is out there, you should seek it out and you should pay attention to it. And that even includes the budget, which is not, that for me, it's a huge learning curve. I've been spending hours looking at the budget because it takes more for me to understand it than Barb, okay, who understands things like budgets way better than I do. I've been spending hours going over it. And one of the things I've noticed is that the TLT tax isn't depleting. It isn't going down. In fact, we only have the first 2 quarter numbers in so far. And as a total, compared to our budget, we're doing pretty well compared to the budget. So I'm really, I would like people to spend the time looking at the facts and And listening to the council meetings and the planning commission meetings, I have to say, I wish so much that there was so much fervor for preserving our natural beauty and our environment here in Cannon Beach as there is for protecting the hotels and motels and restaurants. I would love to see just as much enthusiasm, but this is the biggest crowd I've seen in a long time here, and it has nothing to do with protecting the environment. So I hope that people will come out for the wetlands discussion and future discussions about environmental issues. But I just think take the responsibility upon yourselves to educate yourselves by listening to the meetings, looking at the budget, making an effort to understand it. If I can understand it, you can, anybody can. So that's it.
Thank you, Lisa.
I'm gonna jump in again if you guys don't.
Go ahead.
To answer Andrew's question, we can play a little game and play along. I would like to ask the council members if they think we need a new city hall.
I don't have any problem answering it.
I don't think any of us do.
Yeah, we definitely need a new city hall.
How many people in the audience have gone on the tour of the police department that was offered several times? So that's not even 50% of you have actually gone to look at what condition that police department is in and the city hall. Where it's an unsafe, physically unhealthy working condition. Do you think people should have to?
We don't need a city hall or police station, Lisa.
Well, actually, there are people who've argued that that they should be put on hold, that we're rushing into things. I think people have said that. I've read all the letters that came in, about 20 plus letters, and some of them said that the city hall was a waste of time and shouldn't happen. So that has been an issue for some people. But I'm just saying, you should go on and ask for a tour. Bruce will take you on a tour anytime you want, the entire city hall and the police department. And then tell me we don't need it desperately.
Yeah, I don't know how many people answered that question that you think we need a city hall. I think everyone could agree we're going to need a city hall at some point in the not too distant future. Is it going to get cheaper? Are we going to find some other magical funding sources? I mean, these are tough questions that we're trying to deal with, and I would love to hear some real solutions and some real input from people, that move us along that path.
Guys, and you lost your 3 minutes. So. You finished?
Oh, I think I'm finished for the moment.
Okay. Nancy?
Well, I definitely think we need a city hall. I mean, when I first came here as a reporter in 2007, I think the first story I wrote was a report by, it was by an architect who had studied the city hall and said we needed a new city hall. And that was 16 years ago. So you've been talking about it for at least 16, if probably 20 years. And meanwhile, the city hall continues to fall around our knees. And I would like to point out too, in terms of the size of the city hall, it has been done by the program, the design, not the design, but the need for the space for the city hall, which is considered a program, has been done by two different firms within the last, 3-4 years. And they came within, 20 square feet of each other. So it's not like one, everybody on the staff has decided how large they want their rooms. It has been done by independent companies looking at the size needed for the city hall. And they have come within, I think it's about 20 square feet. It might be 100 square feet of each other. So the size has been pretty much scientifically examined, and two independent firms have determined that that's the size that's needed. So it's not like we're asking for an outlandish city hall. Thank you, Nancy.
I would like to see robust engagement as we are having. I would like to have it with lodging industry. I mean, I'm the last one that's on this council probably that would I thought I'd be the last one that would be proposing an increase in the lodging taxes. But I look at this and I don't know any other way to get there. But I hope we can continue this engagement and see where we can land and make something happen.
I think, one of the things that has brought such a robust response to this is the recent realization that the project is costing much more money than we had originally anticipated. And that's something we as a council have to decide whether we're willing to move forward with that cost. I don't have any information directly in front of me that says, yes, we can eliminate the budget to the point where we had when we decided that the City Hall Police Station would be $16 million or the event space would be $5 million. So that's going to be an ongoing discussion that the council is going to have. And I certainly appreciate the public input, but to ask me at this moment whether I'm capable of making a decision that says how we're going to move forward, I can't give you that answer. I'm more than willing to explore all options. One we haven't spoken tonight as a council is what the effect of raising property taxes would be. That's something I feel like I would like to know, at least in terms of how much money we can generate to do that. But I agree. This project is not what I would consider something that is affordable given the current funding sources that we have. And we're going to have to move forward with that. I absolutely emphatically support building a new city hall and police department. The sooner the better. And I'm sorry if that runs counter to what people are asking in the community about a moratorium, but I've been on the council for 6 years now, spent the better part of that time talking about that. And so far, this is as close to a solution as we've gotten. And I'd like to focus my energies in a way that moves the project forward.
I think we should consider all those options. We need to see where we can cut back. We need to consider, again, given my comments, they're not comments, they're facts about where our funding comes from as a city. And where should it land? How much does tourism force us to be a certain kind of city? And how much essentially we're subsidized by tourism here as residents. But I think residents have a portion to pay in a city hall. Maybe it's that 10%, I don't know, but I would like to have all of these conversations. I'm also not ready to say, yes, let's raise the transient lodging taxes 2%. I think we're in a process here. So maybe we're even struggling with this. But we're trying to find solutions.
It is a struggle because you want everyone to be happy with the final decision. And I'm afraid that that's not possible because there's competing interests. If we raise property taxes, the citizens here would really be very angry. Yeah, I see one of these going in the audience, so, and if
the city hall, they just don't want to pay for it.
If we raise the TLT tax, the businesses are going to be ticked off. So, I mean, there's going to have to be compromises made. And I think it's our job to try and figure out what is the best one, what is the best picture overall for the most people.
One thing I'd like to point out is something that Patrick mentioned about the line item budget. And that actually was done. We had a presentation on that, on last meeting or 2 meetings ago, or whenever it was, earlier this month sometime. And it presented to us line item by line item. Everything that was mentioned on Patrick's line item budget was covered in that presentation.
That's on video.
And that's on video, so
Right.
you can see that.
You can go back and look at it and see it.
So the budget has been looked at very carefully, and as has been mentioned, it'll be looked at even more carefully as we really delve into the details of it all. But it is, we're starting to narrow it down and to understand what is going to go into it.
So we have a hand up in the audience.
Also consider the municipal bonds, this situation.
Yes.
That's what we're considering.
All the discussion we've had has been about paying the debt service.
This option of the paid parking, again, going back to people that come down for the day, they utilize resources, but there's no return on investment. Outside, maybe they'll go to have a restaurant and have a lunch or something. Why is that not a consideration? I would think that the study that I saw earlier, 4 or 5 years ago, I don't think that was realistic. I think it's a significant resource. And it doesn't have to be a blight. I mean, there's so many opportunities now with these electronic mobile parking options. You see them in Portland, see in a lot of event areas. I would just wish you guys would at least go down that road again.
I agree. I remember Bruce making a comment one time that if a city councilor asked him to pursue options on what paid parking looked like, that he would do that. Bruce, would you look at what it would take to do paid parking here?
Yes.
Thank
We
you.
might have another robust discussion.
And we've had that once.
I'm afraid now we've opened it up to
Do you have
more robust discussion.
Do you have anything for
Me? I want to see the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation project go through. I do realize we need to make cuts. We need to, find some rich people to make some good donations, and we need to pursue the grants, which I think Crest is very capable of doing. I know we need a new city hall and a new police station. I always joke that my first summer job when I moved here was to work for the police department. I wasn't in the police department, I was working for them. And it really hasn't changed. And that was in 1982. I know I look young, but so we need to keep this discussion going. And I know we can figure out a way to get what we want if we work together. Okay, so now if you're gonna talk first, I'm gonna talk, I'm up to the podium like normal, and I'm gonna let people that haven't talked yet talk first. And the people that have talked, you get 1 minute, so.
You do that.
Okay.
Good evening, Philip Vincent, 191 Madison, a citizen. And the thing that really spoke to me this evening is the ratio, the usage ratio of the services of our community. And I think about, Gary, you spoke to the number of residents versus the number of visitors. And as a taxpayer, still working full time, I paid my fair share of every tax from the federal government on down, as we all do. And so here we are. Should we pay her some percentage? Sure. But if we paid 1.5% more, that wouldn't even pay for the floor tile in the building because there's not enough revenue there. So that's what the funding source is very important. I couldn't live here if you raise the taxes enough to pay for the bonds, right? So I think that's a really important thing to me. And I think all these things are way overdue. And I think putting the trust in the workers and the council for these things is essential. I mean, that's why you're here, to help do the work of all of us, volunteer or not. So you've got a big job and I appreciate what you're doing. And I just wanted to say that the ratio of how this is paid for, to me, that's a really important thing to consider.
Okay.
We have somebody from the conference room that would like to speak.
Oh, okay.
Should we let him out?
Let them out.
Let him out.
Not sure we should, but here we go.
Probably shouldn't.
Let somebody.
And after you, Lolly. Michael Henderson, P O Box 1052.
And you know, there's a 3-minute.
I won't even take that.
Okay.
So neighbors of Lolly, we have fun conversation in the parking lot all the time. I just want to say that I'd like to see revenue from the city put back in the city. It generates more revenue. So parking for me, like when that just got brought up, I was not going to say anything. That I didn't want to see Lolly in the parking lot later. But I've always thought, and has been thrown around with many members in this community, that if you put, say, over by where the RV parking is, by the reservoir ponds, do a parking garage. Yes, and if you were to able to fill that garage
Remember,
4 months out of the year, you would generate probably 2 million gross dollars for this city. That would eliminate, you guys could have the most beautiful city hall or not, whatever you guys decide. You have a police station, you could redo this, the school however you want. Just off of parking. My business partner that doesn't even live here, so some of the most wealthiest people he knows owns parking lots. It's a huge revenue generator for this city and has been overlooked so many times or just battled back. And so there's your solution. You want to know where the dollars come from? I see people, Dwayne was here, he would say the same thing. All the years that we've been working over there, people come into our office asking if they can pay us $50 just to park for the day. And then they drive around the city pissed. You can see the anger in their eyes just because they can't find a place to park. My number's at 2 million for 4 months out of the year. What we could generate over there, that's at $25 a parking spot. People would gladly pay that instead of driving around in circles all day long, trying to figure it out, being frustrated.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment because sometimes I'm fairly active in media, to say that, yes, we all appreciate what you do, but also it's very important for you to know that we all agree that we need a city hall and a police station. What we're questioning is the size and the construction and the site, which we still don't know what those costs will be. That's where the concern is. So please don't take it as we're saying no to a city hall or a police station. We all know that that's necessary, but it's like saying, are we going to take the most expensive house up at Chapman Point, or are we going to take a more moderate house in the presidential area? And the other thing, when you were giving the example of city size, I wasn't talking about city sizes and city halls of Hines. I was talking of Sisters, Jacksonville, Ashland. I've talked to all of those, Hood River, and they are all very large populations, greater than ours, have a lot of tourists. But Sisters just built a new city hall in 2009, and they spent $6 million. It's 9,000 square feet, and they're a town of 3,800 people plus a huge tourist industry. So just an example of why there's a question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have pretty complete budgets on both projects, don't we? I mean, and
I think, are you from over there? Oh, okay. Where'd you come from? Capacity.
I'll just complete my thought if I can for a second. We've got complete budgets on both projects. We've been talking about siting for, I'm not sure how long you've been here, but we've talked about siting for some 20 plus years. And it sounds like we're coming down to total amount of cash site for the police department and a decision between City Hall there also or here. So I think we're really close to those decisions.
Okay.
Sorry, Michelle.
Michelle, it's
It's okay, we're cool.
3 minutes.
PO Box 719.
I emailed Jeff Adams a bunch about this idea and apparently it's idea time. But I think that if we look into what some other tourist towns have done, like Provincetown, Rhode Island and Newport, California, they do a two-tier tax system. And if you don't live here year round, if this is your vacation home, you get a way higher tax. Therefore, people that live here year round, that live here are residents here full time, pay less tax. Then it's a simple solution. And I think it's a lot of revenue. I don't really know. I'm not a math person, but since it's idea time.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that would have to go to the state legislature for approval. I
don't know.
I understand it, state legislature.
Yeah, I know that Vancouver, BC does that too. West Vancouver has the same two-tiered tax system. And we did bring that up at one time, but we haven't explored whether or not it's a state, there's a state law about it. And that's something to look at.
Okay, Amber, 1 minute.
Yeah, I just have a suggestion.
Okay.
It might help based on what we're talking about. I've never seen, and I do follow and read the meetings, and I'm on the Public Works Committee, and I try to follow, I do work full time. But I think that what would be really helpful is to share with the community a list of projections. If we did parking based on number of parking spots in the community, how much it would, seasonally bring in. If we did buying the crab broiler lot, for example, and putting a parking lot out there and sharing the shuttle service and splitting the cost with Seaside, what would that look like? Just putting some ideas out to give a broader sense again of all the options that could be revenue generators for our town, along with federal grants and state grants. I do this all day for a living. I know that there's a lot of funding that are available for various projects.
You willing to volunteer?
So as Karen knows, I do volunteer on the committee. So I just think that it would be helpful for visibility wise to know, at least for me, I haven't seen over the years, I haven't seen a document that shows projections of what these possible options could bring in. And I think that that would be really helpful in educating everybody so that you could take ideas off the table. And it would stop the recurrence of this, same ideas over and over, and it could be justified because you'd have the facts. So I just would like to suggest and propose that as a methodology to aid in this process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually. I really like that idea.
Jan? Minute.
I just wanted to say, which I've said many times before, I don't believe we need more parking. We need less people coming here in the peak season. It's like rats in a maze after a while. The visitors don't like it being crowded. We don't like it being overcrowded. So please don't do more parking. The parking helps to keep the numbers of the people coming here somewhat at a reasonable number.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have my 1 minute.
You get your 1 minute. Wait a minute, we have to ask Patrick if it's okay.
1 minute.
Okay.
Deanna Hammond, P.O. Box 942, Cannon Beach. So one thing that Gary was talking about is that we have budgets. We have budgets, but the problem with that is we're over budget. If we weren't over budget, we wouldn't be looking for more funds. So I think we need to get back to where we're within that budget so we don't need money. Thank you.
Thank you. Marlene? Some of you guys just woke up or something.
I need courage.
Moss, PO Box 945.
I would just like to say I'm probably the oldest person born in Cannon Beach.
Yeah.
So I have a real love for this city. I have appreciation for all you do. It's a hard job. But I would just like to say, before we take on anything, we need to have a plan for parking. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Parking things. Julie Walker, PO Box 1243. So I've sat here through 3 meetings about parking that everyone has a short-term memory about. 3 separate studies have been done. We paid a lot of money for them. They come and they present, and the whole fucking city goes up in flames. You're not gonna pay for my parking. You can't tell me I'm gonna park for 3 hours. I don't want one way. I don't want this way. And it all went to hell, and we spent all that money. And we don't need a parking garage. I would agree with Jan, who's sitting here saying no parking garage, because I believe the geologist said that's going to turn to, to liquid when it comes. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some paid parking, but I can't believe the outrage I saw at any kind of change when it comes to parking. I agree we could make some money. We already know it's not enough to pay for emergency services. That's why they did the food thing, which a lot of people are not aware of either. We can't pay for emergencies with the parking. It doesn't mean that we can't make some money off of parking. Not everything in the city has to be paid, but there should be some area for paid parking that we can actually make some revenue off of. But you're going to have another group like this, because it's been here 3 times in the meetings that I've been in, where people just scream about any kind of change to parking. There's a way to do it, but you have to change, and you have to be willing to accept it, or at least try it, which the last people that were here gave us several ways to actually try it. They didn't want that either. I'm all for trying something. Thank you. And I too appreciate all that you do.
And a no parking meeting.
Imagine that.
Revenue.
Hands up.
Oh, we do have hands up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Deb again.
Okay. Deb, you get 1 minute.
I know.
Okay.
So I'm just really excited that people are here and involved, and I don't know where you've been, but I'm glad you're here. And I'd like to see more of this, because there's a lot of great ideas coming to the table, and I am very happy about it. So I think that we should, organize and do more of this so that we can all talk and communicate better.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else.
There was a second, but I don't see it now. Oh, there it is.
There.
Oh, Sarah.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So
Thank you guys for all the time you guys putting.
You
Great
need to-
conversation.
Bar, can you give your name and address, please?
Name is Bara. Address is 403 Glenwood Court in Cannon Beach.
Thank you.
I want to just back what Amber was saying about the paid parking. If you look at over by the water treatment center, I understand a lot of people say, we don't want more people. If it's a town of a tourist, we all have to face it. That's people's bread and butter. All the businesses are making revenue from it, hotels, the city, but there's also people that are paying. Think about all our elderly people who are retired, and their property tax keep going up, and they cannot keep up with it. They cannot. When do they have like a place to stop with those people? And the paid parking, they can build a 2-3 story paid parking connected to the highway where people would exit. They will exit straight to the parking lot, park their car, walk into Cannon Beach, no traffic, no chaos, and they can do study. I would like to see what that would look like in the future, and that will help, drive revenue. And also, update our parks. These kids get bored. Some of these parks that they've been here since forever, and we have a younger family, and these parks are outdated. And I don't, I've listened to many meetings. I've never heard somebody bring up the fact that
we need some fun parks for the kids, even, for us parents. That's all I wanted to add. I would like to see more of that. A city hall, if the city hall really needs to be redone, let's do it. But after that, they need to also consider, okay, all the citizens agrees for us to build a new city hall. Let's also, find other ways to drive revenue, not just off of, property taxes or taxes, food or sell, but the parking really will bring revenue to the city. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you all, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Has our panel come up with some great ideas on how to reduce the scope of these projects?
We're talking to you guys.
For our project right now, we're in the conceptual phase, right? So we don't have any plans or even schematic design. So our value engineering is twofold, I guess. One is
talking City Hall now.
Yeah, City Hall PD, excuse me. Square footage is really the first one that we can look at. And then in the case of City Hall and PD, it's the sites. There is a cost difference between splitting the program between two different sites or having it all on one site. So those are really the two areas that we're focused on.
I would say a couple other things when I heard the request for transparency. And I have been very impressed with the community in general and the passion and the involvement that everyone has. We have not yet, in the case of the police department and City Hall, really put pen to paper on the design very much. We have been today doing community outreach, due diligence, code research, programming to establish the size. And that has been the limit so far of how far we have progressed. I will say in terms of the size, we did come to the same size as the previous study. We were given the task to have sharp pencils here, knowing the cost ramifications. So since that last study was done, there was, I believe, 4 new positions added to staff. We've also allocated about 4 workspaces to future growth so that if it gets built at this size, we're looking at efficiencies to make sure that the proposed size lasts into the future. It gives you what you need.
Thank you, Lisa.
For the Cannon Beach Elementary Rejuvenation Project, we're further along in the design process than for City Hall and Police Station. There's a lot of areas we can cut. What I want to say is that the process to get to where we have been today has been extremely transparent. And not only that, so many stakeholders involved in the interest of that very special piece of dirt over there. The countless hours that have been donated by members of the Clatsic Nehalem tribe to help drive the design where it is today. As well as all the community outreach we've done with business owners and residents of Cannon Beach and tourists. The design that you see today is not my design. It's not your design. It's not Bruce's design. It's not the tribe's design. It's our design. We're a conduit. We offer a guiding hand to what you see in our presentations to make sure that it's cohesive and skillfully executed. But what we brought you today is what the community wants. It's what the tribe wants. So are there areas to cut? Absolutely. It's going to be a hard conversation. Everything that we're showing is a high priority for somebody. And the whole thing about the programming phase for Cannon Beach Elementary was to make sure that it wasn't just a tribal project. It's not just a tourism related. Yeah, it's TDT dollars and it needs to cater to that and it needs to drive that. But it needs to be a place for everyone associated with Cannon Beach. So everybody needs to be heard in the execution of that design. I would also like to say that we're going to be doing an analysis of gifts in kind that we can do for the different, especially the tribal elements of Cannon Beach. We've got some really beautiful artwork or carved doors or other conceptual things that we want to integrate with the project. As a tourist who's spent so much time with the tribes, with Clatsop and Nehalem, count me in. As the architect of this project, count me in for $1,500. Put it down. I'm committing.
We're on our way.
We're on our way, absolutely. And as a tourist who's going to be here later this week with my wife, my 6-year-old kid, Juniper, and my two boys, my twins that are 3 years old. Count them in for $100 each. Put me down for $2,000. I want to see this happen.
You taking them down their allowance?
I don't know it yet. I'm out of college, but you know what? This is a responsibility, right? Thank you all for all that you do. And again, thank you for everybody in this community for letting us be a part of both of these projects. They're magnificent projects. They really are.
Thanks, Dustin.
I'll just echo what Dustin said. I think there's been a lot. There's been a lot of hard effort put into the review of the site documents, the estimate. It's not just the number, there's a lot more to it. So, and I think it's all public record. So if there's any questions about it, please feel free to jump in and direct any questions to Bremick as well. So we're here.
All the information that's been produced so far is on the website. Everything we have.
I think there is one thing I would like to see, and I've made this comment before, and it actually has something to do with something that Sam said too. I think it's time that we really look at the operations of the event center and how they're going to affect or could affect the design of it. This is the time we need to really start thinking about what and how and when we're going to do events at the center and how that's going to be managed, because I think it all does integrate with the design of it. And I think this is the time we need to start looking at that and have those discussions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we agreed to have that discussion very closely after this meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Didn't, yeah, okay.
Do we have a date for that?
I think we do. I'm looking up real quick because I think we set one at the retreat.
Well, she's looking, we have a meeting tomorrow at 6 o'clock with the planning commission and the wetlands issue. So we expect to see a big crowd again, 2 nights in a row. If we can do it, you can do it.
And Mayor,
Yes.
been running around making arrangements for folks that want to do a tour of City Hall and the police station tonight.
Tonight.
Depending on how many people are interested. But we can make that happen.
The one I was thinking was something else that we were talking about. I don't think we
Okay.
actually said, but I think it was something we were gonna do in the next few months. But I'm also behind on my minutes for the retreat, so we may have, and I just don't remember.
I don't think we did.
I don't think,
talked about it.
I think we said we need to do it.
Okay.
I don't think we said a date.
We set a date. Can we do that now?
Do we want to set a date now? For that?
I have to.
You don't have to, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I can always put it on as a work session item to start the process.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to put it in April?
Sure.
Okay.
I think we need to, I think we need to. Yep.
And then we can look at calendars and if we want to select another.
Okay.
April work session it is.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? So once again, I'd like to thank the audience, both on Zoom and in person, for your kindness and respect. And come back and visit. We'll be here
Tomorrow.
We'll be here tomorrow.
Sure.
Same place.
Thank you.